just telling Josephine a while ago that I was living in Boston back in the late 80s, like 87 I think it was, and I read a book about the first guy who'd hiked the trail, and it just totally inspired me. I'd actually never been backpacking when I read that book, and I just decided I was going to do it someday. I was going to go hike the Pacific Crest Trail, and so I went out and bought a bunch of stuff and taught myself how to backpack and just started doing trips up in New Hampshire and Vermont, and just put in the back of my head that I'd do this someday. And so about 3 years ago, I hiked the Muir Trail, which parallels the PCT through the Sierras, and it was so beautiful. I was like, you know what? I'm going to come back and do this whole thing, and as soon as I get enough money saved up. So I came back to Boulder, got a job at Alfalfa's, suffered and struggled for 3 years, as many of you know, working for the man.
Connor and I faced this rap.
Yes. And so I managed to save money somehow, even though most of it went to the man. And, and got enough money together to go do it. And so I started walking in May, and Rose was kind enough to take care of, and Daniel was with his assistants as well, was kind enough to take care of my resupply packages. They mailed packages to various post offices that were close to the trail, and when I got near those areas, I just got off the trail and either hitchhiked into the town or walked. Picked up my package, refilled my pack, and headed out on the next leg.
Wow.
So I had to do a lot of planning because I did this trip on raw foods, and I couldn't expect to get the food I needed in these little podunk mountain towns. So I had to have everything I needed in my boxes. So that meant just a lot of planning in terms of the amount of food I was going to need for a particular leg of the trip. You know, if I was going to walk 150 miles from one post office to the next, I had to figure out how many days it was going to take me to do that.
5.
And how much, yeah, essentially that's what it worked out to be. But I didn't expect it to be able to go that fast when I started.
Really?
But that's about how much I was doing, you know, after I left the Sierras. But so, you know, I had this itinerary that I expected to finish by September 26th, and I had the amount of days it would take me to walk each little section between the two post offices, and how much food I was going to need in that box. And I turned out to be fairly close. I finished on September 6th, so I finished like 20 days early. It took like 30 days off, so I definitely rested a lot. And
Yeah, you did, sure, whatever. 30 miles a day is not rest.
Well, I wasn't resting much when I was walking, but I was definitely taking some time off when I got to the towns, because I was totally jonesing for some like real food. I mean, just anything fresh. I was so tired of just, you know, seeds and nuts and gruel, which was kind of what I was eating. And so when I got into town, I was like, man, if there was any fruit, I would just go crazy on it. I'd just buy up I'd walk into these little stores that had maybe 5 or 6 apples and a couple of cantaloupes, and I'd just walk out of there with all the fruit. I'd buy them out of fruit, and they'd be like, what the hell's this guy's deal? You know? So
Another one of those PCT.
it was pretty funny. So that was pretty much it. And then, any guys have any questions? I don't really know what else to say.
Now, were you able to pick up I know you hit those Russians for the whole seminar. Were you able to pick up trail, like, without command at all?
Yeah, there was a couple of places where I had friends near the trail. Ashland, Oregon, the family of Russians that I knew who had hiked the trail in '98, and when I got there, they took me in and fed me, and I also had some friends in Northern California who took me in, and I went down there for 4 days and worked on a straw bale home.
Awesome.
And they just fed me all kinds of good stuff.
But like actually, like the Russians I knew lived off of a lot of, they harvested. As
Yeah,
they
they
went.
did.
And were you able to do
Not
some?
much. I mean, I did, like maybe every other day I'd get some stuff that I'd put in my nori wraps, so that I made for dinner. So it was just, yeah, what they did was just amazing.
Yeah.
And they also didn't really finish the trail. I mean, they skipped big sections, because if you're going to forage for your food, you're not going to be able to hike big miles. And
Yeah.
so they really,
And even at elevations too, it gets.
yeah, and like they skipped the Sierras. You know, there was too much snow in '98. It was like a record snow year, and there wasn't any food up there, nothing but rock and ice.
Yeah.
So pretty much. So yeah, I did a little harvesting, especially in the desert. There was some things that I gathered, and in the Sierras I was getting a lot of onions. But in general, I pretty much had most of the stuff in the boxes that Rose was sending to me. So Rose, you kept me alive for summer. Thanks.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
I did the bulk. You know, here's.
Adam did the bulk. That's all I hand for Adam. Hand for Rose.
Cut and Doug, the best deal I can get. I actually found some good ways to kind of circumvent the system.
Circumvent the man.
Yeah, exactly.
Always looking for the
Direction. Doug was getting direct shipments from
That's
from
right.
certain vendors.
The man wasn't getting any cuts of my food.
Absolutely not. I have to take my 10-minute break so I can handle the goods.
All right, let's start this puppy. So here I am, right at the beginning, and
Looking chunky there, Doug.
I am looking kind of chunky, man. I think I could stand to go for a hike, maybe lose a little weight, you know. But right behind me is a fence. That's the actual border between Mexico and California. And I went and touched that fence, and within like 2 minutes, there was this border patrol truck that came flying up. So they must have some kind of little sensors on the fence that
Wow.
as soon as somebody touches it, man, some little bell goes off somewhere, and they're just flying up to try to find out what's going on. I say, hey man, I'm just going for a walk. It's just me.
If I do that, if I ever do the trail, I'll just sit there in the brush and throw rocks at the fence.
Just drive them crazy.
And there's some, I thought there's like you could shimmy under it or like put your feet on the other side, or so you like. That's what something I heard about it.
Yeah, I didn't really notice that. I mean, maybe some areas Mexicans have like taken a shovel and dug a little trench underneath that they crawl in. But actually, the PCT is a major way that illegal aliens get into this country.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of become known as a way to get into the country and just follow this trail, and it'll get you deep into the U.S. and then at some point you can just bail out. And so there's clothes of like that illegal aliens have just dropped all over the place. You see blue jeans and flannel shirts or whatever just ditched in some bush somewhere that there was a camp for illegals, and a lot of hikers actually have been mugged in the first 50 miles of the trail. So people kind of stuck together initially to kind of prevent that. And there's Rose and Daniel. They actually dropped me off, took my car, and they got the driveway, but I had to walk all the way to Canada. I mean, I don't know how they swung that deal. I was like, shit.
Here's my car keys. Wait a minute.
They're like, well, we're going to Canada, Doug. We'll see you when you get there. And this is Hauser Mountain. You can see the trail vaguely, it's kind of diagonally shooting up on the base of that mountain.
Kind of 11 o'clock.
This is Mindy and Christy, and Mindy was also known as G.I. Jane, and we pretty much actually, her and I hiked together a lot for the first probably 700 miles. We were often hiking and camping together. It's a pretty cool lady, and her friend Christy actually quit after 70 miles.
Oh wow.
So
Mindy, white shirt, blue shirt, which was which?
we'll
probably see that.
Mindy is the one on the right.
Oh.
Good question. And this is just basically desert chaparral. This is pretty much the trail for the first 700 miles with a few sections where you enter trees, where you're up in some higher mountains. But basically you're completely exposed to the desert heat and sun, and that's why I'm wearing the long sleeve shirt and the floppy hat, just because you go insane if you don't have some kind of protection.
Did you hike with umbrellas or anything?
I didn't hike with an umbrella, but a lot of people did.
Yeah.
Actually, not a lot. I saw like maybe 2 or 3 people with an umbrella, and most of them really kind of ditched it after a couple hundred miles of trying it. So there's only one person that really used an umbrella that liked it. This was my dinner. I had nori, and there's actually some wild crafted miner's lettuce hanging out of that there that I got. This is the first the Laguna Mountains at about 6,000 feet. This is day 2, and there's actually some fairly big trees there. So this is a little treed section on day 2. That's White Root. David Patterson lives in Ridgeway, and I hiked with him a lot as well the first 700 miles. He's actually done all 3 trails: the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest